Welcome back to the ETF Inspector. It's Friday, July 25th, a little after 5 o'clock in the afternoon. I guess we'd call it evening at this point. And this is going to be our daily coverage and guesstimate for our three Roundhill income funds, the QDTE, XDTE, and RDTE. They are covered call strategies, 0DTE covered call strategies on the NASDAQ Innovation 100, the S&P 500, and the Russell 2000. Quick reminder, I'm on X at ETF_Inspector1. Each trading day, I post what these 0DTE trades were. If you don't know what that is, in the morning, they will make a trade on these indexes that expires that day. They won't close it out at any point. It goes to expiration, and then they are cash settled, so they don't take assignment. They just cash settle after it's over. All right, so we will take a look and see how they performed. For starters, as we scroll down, we've got each index and the fund covering it. So green day all around. NASDAQ 100 was up 0.23%. QDTE up 0.3%, so they beat it there. The S&P was up 0.4%. XDTE stayed close but did not beat it, 0.34%. And the Russell 2000 up 0.4%, with RDTE just coming in behind at 0.38%. We'll take a look at the trades and see how they made out. So we're just looking at the white portion, not the grayed out portion. That'll come in a little bit. Last day of the week, 25th, we sold calls for 23,280, and we showed it closed at 23,272 and a quarter, so that's less than 23,280. So cost $0 to close out. Profit of $517,000 for the day. That finishes off the week, so they made up for a rough loss on Wednesday, where they had an overall loss of $1.2 million. But throughout the week, they won Mondays, Tuesdays, Thursdays, and Fridays trades, resulting in an overall win, making up for that $1.2 million loss, a profit of $846,000. That doesn't play into this next week's distribution because they're on a 2-week delay. So but even if it did, right, it only earned about 3 cents a share. But what we have to look at for the upcoming distribution next week, this coming Wednesday we'll call it, is how they performed last week. And as you can see, last week they lost $736,000. So when we come up with our guesstimate for QDTE, we look at the income. They lost 3 cents per share, so that doesn't work. Next, we look at the average. So I go onto their website, and I just average out the last 4 payments, basically the last month. Okay, take it out to 6 digits, average them all out, and it's about 23.5 cents. Maybe a little bit extra. So then my guess, not really jumping too far off of it, they lost a little bit of money. But when they lose money, that means that they increased in value, right? Because if they're losing their trades when they sell a call, that means the NASDAQ 100 went above those. So even though they might lose those 0DTE trades, the value of their deep in the money calls that they have purchased or their long increases, and they like to reward us in some way. But I'm basically guessing right around 23.5 cents. That is a drop from this week's distribution. We all just got 23.6 cents deposited in our trading account this morning. So did you buy more shares? I bought RDTE yesterday on X day, so it was already down by the 30 cents. But other than that, right, so our next declaration is on the 30th. We'll get paid on the 1st. There's no change in shares, 23.26 million outstanding shares. NAV and the share price at close are pretty close to each other, and once the next download comes in for the holdings tomorrow, that'll increase these values, which will increase your net assets, which will result in bringing the NAV up to within a couple cents of the share price. All right, so there's your guess for next week. Oh, I did not. Let's take a quick look and see if the IV increased or decreased for NDX. 15.2. Where are we at? So it was 16.1, so that is a decrease for the 30-day IV underlying. Another thing that decreasing is another makes the case for a lesser payment as well. So I may even drop that even more. Let's leave it alone. 23.5 cents. It's already a decrease. Never mind. 23.4. Obviously, we're talking about fractions of pennies, but okay. So that's it for QDTE. We will all find out on Wednesday how that makes out. XDTE is next for the S&P. So they sold calls at 63.85. S&P closed at 63.8864, so that's $3.64 above the 63.85. So we had to pay out that $3.64. Unfortunately, we only collected $3.38 per share in the morning, so we're going to pay out more than we received, resulting in an overall loss of $16,000 on the day. When we total that all up, similar to QDTE, took a big loss that was hard to overcome on Wednesday, and unfortunately XDTE was not able to overcome it, so they took a loss on the week, but that means the value of all the shares that they are long increased as well, even more actually. So $150,000 loss. We take a look at last week's profit and loss to determine our estimate. So $37,000, not a whole lot. If we distributed that up among the 9.1 million shares, that is 0.4 of a cent per share. That won't be your distribution. The average of the last month, I showed you how I get that, right? Go on their website, scroll down to the past distributions, take the last month. Came out to 25.2873 cents, so a little bit less than this most recent. They did make a little profit, not a lot, not much to write home about, but because they made some money and everything increased in value, I did go up to 25.3, so that's up from the average, but it would be a decrease from this past week if you owned QDT or XDTE before the start on Thursday. You received 25.4 cents per share. Sorry, per share. Let's take a look if their IV changed. $11.8. Yep, that decreased as well. With that being said, I think I'm going to decrease this some more. I'm going to just go real close to the average. So, not making any major predictions there. All right, 9.1 million outstanding shares. Like we said, everything went up today a little. So once these long calls increase in value on tomorrow's download of the holdings, that'll increase these net assets. When we divide them by the outstanding shares, that'll increase our NAV, and it will catch up to within a few cents of XDTE. So we'll all find out what we get next week. My guess is that it will be a little less than what we just got. Still in basically, if you just want to call it 25 cents, I still think we're going to get about 25 cents. All right, and finally, RDTE. They selected 22.60 as today's strike price on the short calls. Closed at 22.6107, so $1.07 in the money. We collected $3.45 per share, or a total of $218,000. We ended up having to pay $1.07 per share to close those out. That's $67,000. Resulted in a overall profit of $150,000. And just like the other two, Wednesday went up way too much to to be able for this fund to overcome. So for the week, we lost $63,000. That's in trading. All right, we're gonna make our estimate based off of last week's though, $341,000 increase or profit. That results in over 8 cents per share when we divide it by the current outstanding shares. We took the average of the last 4 payments from Roundhill's website on RDTE. And this last one actually really increased our average, so it might be throwing our numbers off a little bit. While that loads, we will come back. So that brought us up to a 27.34 average. Now last week, what I looked at, I think we made about twice as much income, and they upped their payment by about 4 cents higher than the average. So now this time, making about half as much. I'm going, less than 2 cents over the average, but the guesstimate part is really, there's not a science to it. We can do math to figure out the income. We can do math to figure out the average, math to figure out the IV, but then all of a sudden we're just guessing at that point. So it's an educated guess. Let's see if the Russell 2000 20.3 is the most current IV. That's a decrease. So we don't know if are they trying to lure us in with that 30-cent distribution, or is that the new norm that they're trying to move towards? I said 28. I don't know how confident I feel about it. Let's go 27.5. All right, so that's my guess. But overall for the week, if we look at it, the funds had a good week. Basically, starting and ending the week in the same spot, but don't forget, Wednesday into Thursday, you're going to take the drop of the size of the distribution. So all 3 charts probably going to look. So XDTE actually had a nice week, even with paying out the distribution. It just kept on going. Very nice increase over the week. And don't forget, you're not buying these. These are not growth funds. These are income funds. So if they stay flat and keep on paying you out a distribution, that's how you're making your money. So I made that more confusing than I should have. We should have been looking at the indexes. So for the week, the NASDAQ 100 ended higher than it started. The S&P ended higher than it started, and the Russell 2000 ended higher than it started. So with all 3 increasing throughout the week, all their long calls increased in value throughout the week as well. So although they didn't make a whole lot of money on the trades, they increased in value by a decent amount, which is going to increase their share price, which will allow them to pay out a distribution and still have a decent share price, not have it eroding. So, okay, that's all I got for you. That was a longer video. I kind of went into a little extra explanations. So now it's time for you to have a good weekend and catch you back on Monday. Thanks for watching.